certain books mention that Africa is present in all the 4 hemispheres. It is also known as a plateau continent. I had done the physical divisions of the other 4 continents also, which we had done. Over there, the divisions that were present were mainly, let us say, 3 or 4, or maximum 5. Over here, you will see multiple divisions are there. 8 divisions of physical divisions I have put. So now this yellow part which I have mentioned over here is basically referring to the Sahara Desert. Is there any possibility of people living here on a large scale? It is not possible. This is Somalian plate. It will slowly move away. Time will come that it will crash with what? The Western Ghats of India. Hello aspirants, welcome to PW Only IS. We are continuing with our mapping series. We have already done 4 continents. This is the 5th continent we are going to study and analyze. That is Africa. Please make sure that you draw the maps along with me, write the content along with me, because whatever is mentioned here is from the aspect for the civil services examination. If you do these maps properly, you will be able to answer most of the questions. I would say most because there can be certain exceptions also that can come in civil services. So that is why I'm saying most of the questions that can come with respect to the mapping. Through these particular mapping series, please remember, you're not only enhancing your understanding and ability with respect to the preliminary examination, but also the mains examination. So while I'll be explaining the physical divisions of Africa and the various dimensions, I have also added the human and the economic angle in that. So whenever questions are asked in the mains examinations, also from this perspective, you will be able to comprehensively analyze them. So let us see the various dimensions related to Africa. Have your A4 sheet ready. Along with the lecture that I am delivering, pause the video wherever it is required, draw the map, write the content and make your notes. By the time you finish the lecture, you will be having your comprehensive notes, which you can revise again and again and do very well in your prelims as well as the mains examination. So let's begin today's lecture, that is Africa. This is a QR code where you can find the PDF which I am doing or working on right now. Along with it, other aspects related to geography, anthropology optional, society and civil services examination in general. Africa, let's begin. Now see, as you already do, this is a world map in front of you, which I had drawn by hand, which I have frequently used in my previous lectures also. Now if you see, these land masses are present, then also the water bodies are present. So we very well know this is a region that is Africa. Now, this is what is Africa, right? This is a region that is Africa. Now, if I want to analyze it further, let's see. We very well know that this is the equator, this is a prime meridian. All the regions that are present over here, above the equator, lie in the northern hemisphere. This is the northern hemisphere part. All the land masses, the places, regions, whatever is present below the equator is basically coming under the category of the southern hemisphere. All those lying on the east of the prime meridian are in the eastern hemisphere. All those lying in the west of the prime meridian lie in the western hemisphere. Now, please remember, I am telling you very categorically with respect to the African continent. There is a lot of confusion in various books that are mentioned. Certain books mention that Africa is present in all the 4 hemispheres. Certain books mention that Africa is present only in 3 hemispheres, not in the southwestern hemisphere. Now, please analyze this. You should be very well aware because this question can be asked in your preliminary examination. If we are talking only about the African mainland, I am not considering the various associated islands that are present. In that case, we can say that the African mainland is lying in the northwestern hemisphere. It is also lying in the northeastern hemisphere. It is also lying in the southeastern hemisphere. This is the African mainland. But if I include the other islands, in that case, there will be various islands that are present in this part also. So in that case, you can say that yes, Africa is present in all the 4 hemispheres. So whenever a question is asked in the preliminary examination, it becomes very, very important to understand the language and only then you answer. If they just ask you the mainland, yes, that will be correct only in 3 hemispheres. If they ask Africa and its associated territories, in that case, you will be mentioning all the 4 hemispheres. Let us begin and continue. This was a basic understanding that you should know. Now, this is the map of Africa, which I have enlarged. Now, we have to deal with this particular map. Please understand, again, this is hand-drawn map, which I had drawn while I make all these maps on my iPad. The thing is, initially when you draw, it becomes really difficult to have a shape also like this. You do not have to be artistic in nature to draw exactly the same figure, but approximately similar, because these maps can be used not only in understanding or solving the questions of the preliminary examination, but also while you are doing giving case studies in your mains examination, whether it is GS paper 1 or even GS paper 3 for that matter, you can use. Let's begin. Some basics. Now, this is a map of Africa. Let us see some basics regarding Africa, which you should know. These are certain facts and figures and statistics that have been mentioned in your old NCRTs. Rather, better word would be the older to the older NCRT. That means the older NCRT are the 2005, and below, before that also, before those NCRTs also, a lot of NCRTs came. So, using those content also, we have put a lot of things over here and updated the content. So, let's see. Firstly, we have already understood the fact, we have done this also earlier on, it is the second largest continent. It comprises 22% of the total land area that is present on the earth. So it is the second largest continent. Very interesting thing over here comes, when you see Africa, yes, it is a continent, but average elevation of this continent is relatively higher. Relatively higher. That is why there is another terminology that is used for Africa. It is also known as a plateau continent. Now, sometimes when a statement comes in your prelims examination asking you which among the following, or let us say the plateau continent is associated with Australia, possibly you will mark it correct, because we have seen that we have read already that it was isolated, separated from the other parts, riding in the southern hemisphere. So you might mark it correct. But the correct word over here is because the plateaus have an average elevation that is more than the normal land which we discuss or talk. The elevation over here is relatively higher, which is from 600 to 1500 meter, and that is why this continent is known as a plateau continent. Always remember that. Do not confuse it with Australia. This question has been asked in the preliminary examination many years ago in UPSC also, and this has been repeatedly asked in the state PCS examinations. Please remember, these are those questions which you should be, or these facts which you should remember, right? The interesting thing is, if you see, Equator, Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, all the three basically pass through the African continent. So this is again a very important thing. Equator passes through almost the middle. So this is what equator is passing. You can I can mark it here. So it is almost dividing Africa into two halves, right? Africa, equator passes through almost the middle. Now, if you see, in totality, Africa has 54 recognized countries. Why I'm saying recognized? Because those which are registered or recognized by United Nations. That is why 54. Next, Africa is home to 3000 plus ethnic groups and 2000 plus languages. You know that very well that a lot of tribals are present in Africa. Large tribal groups and all, they have their own languages, their own culture, and that is why it is very ethnically diverse. And it is not only a continent which is full of minerals. It is not only a continent which has the largest number of countries that can be present within a continent, but also the huge diversity with respect to the tribals and their languages. And the cultural diversity is so huge that possibly if you travel from one country to another, you can imagine the beauty and the way the people live, because obviously it is huge and it has Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn and equator passing through it. So large number of, or to a great degree, climatic variations are also existing here. Climatic variation existing here, that means that will actually impact the cultural aspects also. So huge diversity being present here. Now, having studied this, let us move on to the next very important aspect. Now, I had done the physical divisions of the other 4 continents also, which we had done. Over there, the divisions that were present were mainly, let us say, 3 or 4, or maximum 5. Over here, you will see multiple divisions are there. 8 divisions of physical divisions I have put. Now, the problem while I was making the notes for you was that if I do the divisions in one hand, then again repeat the same thing later on with respect to human geography will become problematic for you. So what I've done in this chapter is that along with every single feature, I've added element of human and the economic angle so that you can basically analyze. Let us say what are the economic activities associated with that. So these things basically help you to understand it. Clear? So these are the 8 divisions. First is the Atlas Mountain. I'll be showing you and demarcation, don't worry. Atlas Mountain. North African Sahara Desert, Sahel Transition Zone, Congo Basin, Eastern Highlands and the Great Rift Valley, South African Plateau and the Drakensberg Highland, Savanna region, Kalahari and the Namib Desert. Now, these are the broad divisions which have been standardly classified and accepted by various books, even the NCERTs have it. So, this is the 8 divisions which I have present or mentioned in front of you with respect to the physical divisions of Africa. You can pause the video, note it down. Along with it, please remember, merely just knowing these names will not work because you're doing geography, so you should be very well aware of the demarcations also. I'll be taking each and every division separately and teaching you. So like see, Atlas Mountain, Sahara Desert. So I'll be taking each and every division separately. But before that, let us see the broad aspect. When I mentioned Atlas Mountain, this is the region, Atlas Mountain, which you're going to study over here. You know the Sahara Desert, the largest desert over here. So this is the Sahara Desert. Now, there between Sahara and the savannas, you have a transition zone that is present, that is known as the Sahel transition zone or the Sahel zone. So this is basically this long zone that is present, which we are going to take it as a separate physical division. If you see this part, this is basically the Congo basin. We had mentioned here Congo basin. So this is the Congo basin region. If you come over here, this is basically the Eastern Highlands, which has the Ethiopian highlands and other regions, along with the Great Rift Valley. And if you see the Great Rift Valley, it is basically coming like this and further demarcating. So this is a Great Rift Valley, and obviously this is the Highland region, so which are demarcated in the blue color. Now, the white color portion which you are seeing is basically the savannas, right? The savannas. Now, if you come here in the lower part, you will see the South African plateau. Over here, you have a very important mountain range, which we will study later on also, Drakensberg. This is the Drakensberg. That is why it is written South African Plateau and Drakensberg Highlands or the hills. So this is the Drakensberg. This is the overall region, that is the South African Plateau. Now, there are 2 very important deserts also present here. We will be considering the other deserts also comprehensively. Don't need to worry about that. This is basically the Namib. If you see over here, let me mark it also. When I say Namib, this is basically Namib. This is Kalahari is basically this, which I'll show you in the coming maps. So one should remember one thing very clearly, that Namib is the oldest desert of the world, right? This question has been asked. I will be making you write also, don't need to worry. This question has been asked in the PCS examinations repeatedly. Many people, when they are asked which is the oldest desert of the world, they tend to answer probably the Sahara Desert because they assume that it is the largest, so possibly it would be the oldest. It is not correct. The Namib Desert is the oldest desert of the world. You should be aware of this. This is a true desert. On the other hand, when you go to Kalahari, it is not actually a true desert. It has all the desert-like characteristics, but also it has a lot of, let us say, other features which sometimes people label it as a pseudo desert. We'll see that, right? So meanwhile, this is the Namib Desert, this is the Kalahari Desert. Clear? Now, these are the divisions which I have mentioned over here, and I will be dealing with each division now separately. Let's move and start with the first, Atlas Mountains. Now, very, very important. Whatever is written over here, like for example, whatever word is mentioned here or written over here, we will be doing or labeling them in the coming slides. So don't need to worry about that. These facts and figures and information that is given here is picked up from the NCERT and the standard books also. So I would recommend to you that while you are listening to the lecture, please note down these things along with it. Because if you note them, you will be able to remember and recall. There is a very bad habit from the side of the students which I've observed. They basically ask, okay, lecture is fine, we will see the lecture, or if we do not see the lecture also, we can basically see this PDF and go along with it. Please remember, according to various studies, particularly the anthropological studies also which we do, once you hear the lecture, because I'm speaking and explaining you, it is better or easier for you the things so that you will be able to grasp them easier in a shorter span of time. So once you see the lecture, then possibly you can go through or download the notes. But along with it, if you write along with me, that will be the best method for you to remember. When people ask me how to remember things, this is the way. While I'm teaching you, you pause the video also wherever it is required, copy it, then along with it, write it down, and then later on revise it. You will not be forgetting that also. These are time and tested techniques of how to remember things properly. Anyhow, now when I've mentioned over here Atlas Mountains, now let's see here. These are present in the northwestern African region, and it is about 2,500 kilometers. These are what? 2,500 kilometers present in the northwestern part of Africa. Along with it, present in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. So, if you see from the construct of what all countries have the presence, or it is present in which all countries, these are the three major countries where it is present. That is Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. Now, how it was formed, we have already done the plate tectonics movement in the geography series that is going on. So, please remember that very well. Along with the mapping series you are doing, please go to the geography series also. That is physical geography. That is very, very important. We had basically studied there also due to the collision of the African plate with the Eurasian plate basically led to the creation of these fold mountains, which are known as the Atlas Mountains. So, you have got to know about the physical dimension also, which we were taught to you in the plate tectonics chapter. Now the thing is, Mount Toubkal 4167 meter is the highest peak in North Africa. Now where is this particular mountain? Just see here. Can you see this particular red mark which I mentioned? Now this is the point where Mount Toubkal is present. Clear? Clear? This is, again, you should have a basic knowledge about it because you can be asked this particular question also. We'll be doing the peaks separately, but you should be aware of it. Now, from the economic aspect also, please understand this region is very, very important. It has a lot of minerals, mining activities have been going on, along with the, yes, agriculture in the associated regions or the nearby regions is also practiced. If you see, mining region, iron, zinc, lead, copper, mercury and phosphates are found here. So these are basically, this region is again has a lot of mines and mining activities are going on. Agriculture, olives, grapes, citrus fruits, because it has a Mediterranean type of a climate. So that is why you see these types of olives, grapes and citrus fruits grown on a very large scale over here. So this is from the perspective of the economic aspect that you should be knowing and you should be well aware of it, because this will help you to link the concept from the physical geography aspect. So this is the Atlas Mountain and the related information that you should be aware of. Please note it down, giving you a minute. Right? Okay, the important thing will be while you're noting it down, you draw this map only once. Do not draw it repeatedly, which I mentioned here. Once you've drawn it, and then along with it, you can write this content. Clear? Okay, let's move to the second part, Sahara Desert. Now, Sahara Desert is something that you are all aware of, right? And you have all studied in your school days also. So now this yellow part, which I have mentioned over here, is basically referring to the Sahara Desert. Now, when we talk about the Sahara Desert, please see, it is the largest hot desert in the world. And just imagine 31% of the Africa's area is covered with what? Sahara Desert. To close to, I can say, 1/3 of Africa is basically the Sahara Desert, close to 1/3. So it is huge. So that is why it is the largest hot desert in the world. Secondly, the temperatures, if you realize, during the summer days, it goes much, much beyond 50 degrees Celsius. Now, that time, because of the very high temperature, you know that normally vegetation over here is not so prosperous. Why? Because the temperature is so high. So that is why, what do you analyze from this? If the temperature is very high, is there a possibility of people living here on a large scale? It is not possible. Only where certain economic activities are there, in certain regions, which we will see with respect to natural gas and oil. Other than that, you will not see people over here. So it is very, very, very sparsely populated region because the temperature is so high and lack of vegetation for that matter. So population is sparse and unevenly distributed. Why unevenly distributed? Now see, any region where you find a resource, possibly the population over there will increase slowly because the resources there, mining activities are going on or some other economic activities are going on. Other regions will not be having the population because you should understand this is huge. So only certain pockets and patches will be the regions where possibly the population is more. Otherwise, there will be large patches of land there you will find nothing. Now, if you see pastoralism again with respect to camels and goats, that is done by the tribal people over here. Along with it, minerals are found here. Now, minerals are found in Niger, around the region. Oil and natural gases in Libya and Algeria. That is why you realize these regions are again producing a lot of oil and natural gases also. So, in these regions where these resources are found, you will see the population are relatively higher in comparison to the other regions of Sahara. Now, tribes, Tuareg, Bedouins and Moors are those tribes which are again involved in pastoral activities also over here. So, these are common tribes which are found in the Sahara Desert region. Now, this is again very important aspects which I have covered over here. You should be very well aware of them, right? These questions with respect to tribes have also been asked in the prelims, in the PCS and the other civils, other than the civil services examination, other exams of UPSC have basically used this content and basically asked a lot of questions. So this is the Sahara Desert. Now coming to the another part, the Sahel region. If you see here, below the Sahara Desert, you have this patch of land which I have mentioned here. This is the Sahel region. Now this is what, please understand, this is a transition zone. This is something very important. This is a transition zone between the Sahara Desert, this is a Sahara, and this is a Savanna, which we will be doing that, we'll be studying. Between them is a transition zone, which is a Sahel region. Now, it is neither completely arid in the form of Sahara, lesser than and has characteristics somewhat similar to, let us say, desert and Savanna. So that is why it is like a transition zone between both of them. That is why we have put it in a transition zone. Now, extends, if you see, from the east to west, because it's a long distance over here, it is close to 5,400 kilometers. From north to south, there are certain variations, but approximately, if you see, 300 to 500 kilometers is the north-south extent, if you see over here. Clear? North to south, 300 to 500. From this end to this end, you have 5,400 kilometers. The semi-arid climate is present over here. Semi-arid. Now, nomadic pastoralism again is practiced here, camels and goats. So, all the tribes which you see in the Sahara Desert, to a certain extent, are also present over here, which you can believe from the aspect of Tuareg, Bedouins and Moors are also present here. Subsistence agriculture, millets, sorghum and groundnut, because the aridity is relatively lesser if you compare it with Sahara Desert. So that is why you can grow these millets, sorghum and groundnut over here in these regions. So this is the transition zone. This is something that you should be knowing about the Sahel region. Now comes the Congo basin. For 2 minutes, let us come from this region to this region. This is Congo basin. Now, Congo basin again is a very, very important physical feature of Africa. If you see, this is the largest river basin in Africa and second largest in the world. If you see, second largest river basin in the world, the first being the Amazon. So now by default, you can realize that this region is again going to have similarities to what you see in Africa also. That is why when you see or understand or read about Amazon, it is generally called as the lungs of the world, right? Now, this is known as the lungs of Africa because of the dense forest, the rainforest that is present, that produces a tremendous amount of oxygen. So, it spans over 4 million square kilometers. That is huge, huge space or huge area, if you can see. It is centered around the Congo basin. So, by default, you realize that Congo River is over here, and Congo River is playing a very important role also, like Amazon in the Amazon basin. So similar feature over here. What was Amazon which we had studied in South America is with respect to Congo basin in Africa. It is a saucer-shaped depression. So if you see, if you look at the structure, you can possibly see that it is like this. Obviously, depositions have taken place because of the river, but this is like a saucer-shaped depression. That is why it is known as a saucer-shaped depression or a basin over here. The climate is hot and wet equatorial, very similar to what we see in the Amazon basin. Rainfall greater than 2,000 millimeter annually. That is huge. That is why you have the equatorial rainforest also present here. Vegetation, dense tropical rainforest. It is known as the lungs of Africa. Why it is known as the lungs of Africa? Because this rainforest, very dense rainforest is present here. And along with it, production of huge quantities of oxygen. And that is why known as the lungs of Africa. This should be very well in your minds because you can be asked a question in your prelims where they can possibly mix the concepts of Amazon basin to that of Congo. That is why it is important to understand. Now, sparse population. Please, if you see the Amazon basin also, where the rainforest or dense rainforest is present, it is very difficult to stay inside those regions because very close by, nearby, huge, humongous trees are present. So in these rainforest regions also, the population over here is very sparse, very less. There is almost very few tribal people that will be there. So the population is very sparse in this region, right? Because of the dense forest. Because what happens is when you go inside the rainforest, humongous, huge sized trees are present. It is very difficult to even walk through those because it is not only the humongous trees, there are a lot of creepers and other small trees and animals that are present, which makes it very difficult for the humans to stay here. Unless and until those regions are cleared for agriculture, that is a separate case scenario. But normally, it is very difficult for the people to stay in these regions. So that is why you realize population over here is very sparse. Now let's move ahead to the Eastern Highlands and the Great Rift Valley. Overall, which we see is the Eastern Highlands over here. It has further subparts which you will be seeing. Now see here, first let us see the Eastern Highlands and then I will tell you about the Great Rift Valley. Okay. See, on the eastern margin of Africa, from Ethiopia to Zimbabwe, so these regions from Ethiopia to Zimbabwe, this region is basically the Eastern Highlands. It includes the Ethiopian Highlands. Ethiopian Highlands is present over here. Kenyan Highlands and the Tanzanian Highlands. So all this region basically, Eastern Highlands which we talk about, these cover the regions of Tanzania, Kenya as well as Ethiopia. Again, Ethiopian Highlands occupy this major region over here, which we will be studying also. So these Eastern Highlands basically comprises these three highlands inside it, which were combinedly together known as the Eastern Highlands. Ethiopian Highlands, the Kenyan Highlands as well as the Tanzanian Highlands. Now formed by the uplift and the volcanic activities due to the tectonic movement along the Great Rift Valley. You very well know that the Great Rift Valley over here and tectonic activities have been taking place. So because of these tectonic activities and the volcanic activities, there has been upliftment and obviously these highlands have been created. So this is something basically you should be aware of. Climate, tropical highland-like climate because obviously the elevation is more. Volcanic soil is there and these soil are suitable for again cultivation of some tea, coffee, maize and barley have been cultivated by people over here, the indigenous people. Now please remember, because these are highlands and plateaus, these are obviously rich in the mineral deposits that are here. So with respect to the mineral deposits, if you ask me, you have gold, copper, iron ore in Tanzania and Ethiopia. So these are regions and hubs of where mining activities have been taking place or extraction of mineral resources have been done. So these are very rich with respect to the mineral deposits. So this is what the Eastern Highlands. Now the lines which I have drawn over here, basically referring to the Great Rift Valley. So see here, Great Rift Valley basically extends from about 6,000 kilometers from Lebanon in the West Asian region. Obviously, it extends to Mozambique in Africa, right? So it is an extension basically that is starting from West Asian region. You know that according to the plate tectonics chapter which we had done, slowly you realize these plates are diverging, right? These Somalian plate is basically moving away. This is Somalian plate. It will slowly move away. Time will come that it will crash with what? The Western Ghats of India. Now this will take millions of years. By that time you will not be alive also. So don't need to worry about that. So again remember, this divergence is taking place. This Somalian plate is moving away and this plate will slowly move and crash with India in the coming millions of years. So this divergence has led to a lot of volcanic activities also, as we had studied in the previous slide. So this is being created. Now this Rift Valley which is being created is again very huge, 6,000 kilometers. Now as we have done divergence due to Nubian and Somalian plate. We have done in the plate tectonics chapter also the physical geography series which is going on the YouTube, where we had done in the plate tectonics how or what do you mean by diverging plate boundaries and so on and so forth. You have done all those things. Divergence, convergence and all. So if you see, when the plates are basically moving apart, these are plates, let us say, due to endogenetic forces, let us say, this plate is moving, this plate is moving. So obviously with time, you will see certain Rift Valley-like structure that are being created. So this is being studied over here. Clear? Let's move to the South African Plateau and Drakensberg Highlands. Now please understand, this region which I have mentioned here is basically this red part. This is a South African plateau. Now, when I talk about the Drakensberg highlands, so please understand, or the Drakensberg range also, it is basically this. This is Drakensberg's highlands, or for that matter, hills also, as you can mention. We'll be labeling that in the coming slides, so don't need to worry about that. So this is the region. Now let us first consider the South African plateau. This is the South African plateau, the one that is marked in red over here. It covers most of South Africa. Again, if you know that this is majorly the South African region, so it is covering most of the South African region and parts of Namibia and the adjoining Botswana. So these adjoining countries are also being covered along with South Africa. So this can be asked also that the South African, let us say the plateau, covers the South Africa only. Now that will be incorrect. It basically covers, yes, great parts of South Africa, but also parts of Namibia and Botswana. Now, that is why I'm telling you, whenever the questions are asked in the examination, you should be aware of these small things. South Africa, parts of Namibia and Botswana. When these questions are asked at that time, because you haven't studied, and that is why you get confused. These questions are generally, especially these ones or such types of questions, are picked up from NCRTs. Because you do not study them well, that is why we miss them. Next, it is bounded by. Now please understand. Let us see the boundary over here. It is bounded by Kalahari Desert in the north. This is a Kalahari Desert. This is the Namib Desert. You know that very well. We'll be doing that also. This is a Kalahari Desert in the north. It is by Drakensberg Mountains in the east. This is the Drakensberg Mountains or the hills in the east. Namib Desert in the west. So almost this extends further down. This extends further down here. Namib Desert in the west and the Grape Escarpment in the south. Now, Grape Escarpment basically refers to a very tall mountain-like structure which is very steep immediately. Unlike the other mountains which are like this, you have a very steep structure. Now, this can be because of various reasons. This is due to tectonic activities or coastal erosions also, which we will be doing this chapter in the landforms when we will be doing the physical geography series, which is right now going on in the YouTube. So this is an escarpment. It is a very immediate height that basically appears or is an outcome of the erosional activities or due to tectonic activities, the rise has been there. So this is a great escarpment that is present in the southern side. That is why it is mentioned the great escarpment in the south. Next is the average elevation is about 900 to 1500 meters of this particular plateau. It has temperate grasslands. Now this is very, very important, which has been asked repeatedly in the PCS papers, also UPSC. The temperate grasslands present in Africa is basically the velds which are present in South African region. Minerals over here, this region is very, very rich in minerals, particularly gold and diamonds. A lot of mines like Kimberley mines and all are present in these regions, particularly for gold. So that is why if you see, these are very rich regions with respect to these minerals. So gold, platinum, diamond and manganese. So very rich mineral rich region. So this is something that you should be very well aware. That means the South African plateau is very rich in these minerals. It can be asked. Supposingly, they can ask you that which among these plateau is very well known for gold as well as diamonds. So they can ask you, let us say the Ethiopian plateau, then they can ask you as South African plateau, and so on and so forth. So that is why South African plateau is specifically very rich in these particular minerals, diamonds and gold. Now, having done this, let us see the Drakensberg Hill. We have already marked it here. Let me mark it again. Now, it is basically where it is. It is found on the eastern edge of the South African plateau. So this is complete South African plateau. On the eastern side, you have what? The Drakensberg Hills or the mountains of the range which we mentioned. So the eastern edge of the South African plateau are the Drakensberg Highlands, or we can known as the Drakensberg Hills. It forms the great escarpment of the southern Africa. Highest mountain range is in the South African region. Or in South Africa, if you see, this is the highest mountain range. Peaks above 3000 meter. Temperate mountain climate is present because of the height. Clear? So these are the Drakensberg Hills that you should be very well aware of. Okay. Let's move ahead. Now comes the Kalahari and the Namib Desert. This desert present over here, this desert present over here is the Namib Desert. This one, north of the South African plateau, is the Kalahari Desert. So this is something you should be very well aware. These two should be studied properly also. So let us see a few details about them. Now, Namib Desert, it runs along the southwestern coast of Africa. So this is the southwestern coast. It runs along the southwestern coast of Africa. It is the oldest desert in the world, 55 to 80 million years ago. Hot desert climate, less than 50 millimeter of rain annually. Temperature might be, let us say, 0 degrees Celsius at night to even greater than 45 degrees Celsius during the daytime. Diamond and uranium mining is done here. So again, very, very important economically. Do you analyze? If you go to whatever regions of Africa you are going, whether it is a desert region, whether it is a plateau region, whatever, you realize it is basically a mineral rich region. That is why the irony is, in spite of being so mineral rich, why is it so backward? This is very similar to an instance which you see the red corridor or the red region, corridor region, which is basically referring to those which are affected by the Naxals. But along with it, if you see the regions on the eastern and southeastern regions of India, you see those regions are not very well developed. Obviously, there are multiple reasons because those are forested regions. Those are regions in India which are full of tribes. All those reasons are there, but very similar situation. Similarly, in Africa, which is again full of indigenous communities, a lot of minerals are there, but still it is backward. Only in certain patches of Africa which have developed, certain new things have come up again, is the tourism. Rural tourism or indigenous tourism concepts have come up. You realize that Maasai tribe, along with, let us say, collaboration with the governments, they have basically helped the governments so that people from outside India can basically come and explore their culture. Now, this has been very fruitful where the tribals are not disturbed from their traditional culture or habitat they are doing. Along with them, they basically get a benefit out of it from the government, along with the tourism is improving in these regions. So possibly you have to find a middle path. You cannot simply destroy the culture of the indigenous communities. Along with it, you have to boost economic aspect also. So there's a balance that needs to be maintained. Okay. Now, diamonds and uranium mining is done here. Now, a question over here, please remember, this is something very important. It is the oldest desert. Now, this question, as I mentioned you, has been asked repeatedly in various examinations. To be more precise, this question was also asked in KBC also a few years ago. That was, I think, 12.5 lakh rupees question. Just imagine, you had just seen this lecture, possibly you had been sitting in the hot seat, you would have answered that and won 12.5 lakh rupees also. So this was asked in KBC, so you should be aware of these things. Okay. Now, having done the Namib Desert, let us move on to the Kalahari Desert. Now, this is again a semi-arid sandy plain. So not as arid as Namib. That is why sometimes people say that it is not exactly a desert, but obviously we call it a desert because it has all the features, but it is relatively lesser arid when you compare it with the Namib Desert. That is why semi-arid sandy plain. It covers regions of Botswana, parts of Namibia and South Africa. The area again is humongous, 9 lakh kilometers square. It is semi-arid steppe climate, receives about 250 to 500 millimeter of rainfall. Now, this is relatively higher if you see it from the perspective of a desert. That is why it is semi-arid also. Sandy soil, but supports grass and shrubs. The important thing over is here also a very important diamond mine is found. That is, Orapa mine is found in this region that is famous for diamonds, and that is why mining activities keep on going here also. So this is what is the Kalahari Desert. Clear? Last part is the Savanna. We have covered all the other things. Now please see, when I had drawn the map in the initial stage, the first map that I had drawn, I had mentioned this white region as Savanna. Tropical grasslands. Wells are the temperate grasslands. Please remember, wells that I had mentioned with respect to the South African plateau when we were reading, wells were temperate grasslands, savannas are tropical grasslands. Clear? Now see over here, when we have mentioned, we just mentioned savanna, but over here you need to analyze that the savanna over here is divided into 3 categories based on the certain variations in the nature that is present. This region over here, let me mark it in a way so that it becomes easier for you. This region is basically the Sudanese savanna. East African savanna, if you see this region, obviously this coastal part, this region is the East African savanna. And if you come down, this part is basically the Miolo woodland savanna, or sometimes people call it a woodland savanna. So these are the three parts of the savanna. Though we can call it as one, but it has to be divided into three because the NCERT is basically prescribed to that. Now see, the savannas form the largest biome in Africa, covering nearly 40% of the continent, right? So huge. That is why if you see the white region, it is very huge. These are tropical grasslands with scattered trees. Now this is again a characteristic feature. Now these are divided into three categories. First, Sudanese savanna from Senegal to South Sudan. So from Senegal region, that is present on the western side, to the South Sudan region, this is the Sudanese savanna. Now the East African savanna basically covers the three major countries, that is Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, that is in this region. Now Miomlo woodland savanna, this covers again this southern part, Zambia, Angola, Tanzanian part and Mozambique. Now people will say, so Tanzania has been mentioned here also and here also. See, some parts of Tanzania lie in the woodland savanna also, the southern part. The northern part is basically comes under the category of the East African savanna. So this should be clear. You should not get confused because Tanzania has been mentioned both. If you want to write, you can possibly mention South Tanzania. This will make it easier for you to remember also. So that there is no problem in that. Clear? Now let us see them one by one. If I see the Sudanian savanna, that is from Senegal to South Sudan, which is this part which I had told you, tall grasses are found here because see, in the examination, in the preliminary examination in particular, they can ask you even question within or comparison between the Sudanese or let us say the woodland savanna also, if they want to pull your leg. That is why you should be aware of them, right? Now Sudanese savanna, these have tall grasses, baobab and acacia trees are basically found, are the characteristic of this particular type of grasslands. Large rural population is found here. Again, please, large rural population is found here. And along with it, millets, sorghum, cotton, belt region is there. So these all things are grown. Along with it, livestock rearing is done here. Gold mining in Ghana region is again present here. So gold mining is also done here. So this is basically the Sudanian savanna aspects with respect to the physical features as well as the economic aspects, which you should be well aware of. Now comes the East African savanna, which I had mentioned in this region. So this is from Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda region. These are open grasslands. Pastoral life over here, Maasai tribe is present here. That is why rural tourism is very common here. Lot of people have been going to the East African savanna region, Masai Mara region, which you would have very often heard that people are going to them as for safaris or African safaris are basically going to these regions, where the countries, particularly Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, are very well coordinating, particularly majorly Kenya has been very active over here, where people have been going there and enjoying also the rural aspect, rural life. So that is why please understand, these people are going there and understanding and enjoying the pastoral life of the people also. So pastoral life is again the characteristic feature of the Maasai tribe. Mixed farming is also practiced here. As I had mentioned, tourism hub, please understand. With respect to tourism, they have, particularly Kenya has done really very well, because it has tapped the potential of rural tourism and the indigenous tourism, where the coordination between the tribes and the government is such that the people who go there are not going to disturb the tribals or give them certain food and all, that might disturb their ecosystem or their habits. But what they have to do is, you can talk to them through an intermediary. You can see how their life is. Those people over there also are protected from the side of the government. So there is a very beautiful linkage between the people who visit the culture of the Maasai tribes along with the conservation of the Maasai culture, right? This is something that we should learn also in India also to practice. Tourism hub is there again because, as I had mentioned, cash crops like tea and coffee in the highland margins or highland regions are basically grown also. So this is what is the East African savanna. So if you are asked with respect to East African savanna, the Masai Mara tourist spots are associated with which of the regions or divisions, physical divisions of Africa? One is savanna, second is, let us say, uh, Sahara Desert, third is Sahel Desert, Sahel region, and let us say South African plateau. So you should be well aware it is savanna, and within the savanna it is East African savanna. Clear? Let us move ahead. Miombo woodland. Now this covers this particular part. Now it covers Zambia, Angola, Tanzania, and Mozambique region. Now this is woodland savanna. Over here you see that there are maumba trees are present here. That is because of which it gets the name also. So wood trees are present. Which trees are present? Maumbo trees are present here. Low population density, because when you see that trees density relatively rise, so over here the people or the density of population is relatively less if you compare it with the region which is of the East African region. Copper mining belt is here. Zambia is very famous for copper mining, so a lot of mines are present here. Subsistence farming is also practiced here. So this is the characteristic feature with respect to the Moyombo woodland savanna. Now we have done with all the physical divisions of Africa, where I have covered the physical along with the human and economic angle, so that you are able to correlate. Rather than giving the minerals aspect as a separate map, I have covered within this particular division also in detail that what are the minerals found in these regions. So that will make you easier for you to comprehend also. Now coming to, let us say, separately I have taken here the important ranges. Right? So important ranges, along with it we'll be taking the peaks, lakes and water bodies and all. So if we see here, along with every mountain range, I have added some content wherever it is required, whether in which region it lies or associated important aspects. So you should note these things also down, because this is basically based on the trend also that UPSC has been asking, or the PCS examinations where these questions have been asked. So if you see this Atlas mountain, this is basically we have done this as basically a physical division also. So you know the characteristics. This is present again in Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia, which I had mentioned. It is a fold mountains, that also when the African plate basically colliding with the Eurasian plate, that is why these fold mountains are formed. Now if you come further south, you have this Aghar or Hogar mountains. Now this is basically present in southern Algerian region. It is because an outcome of the ancient volcanic activities that took place, not the modern day, ancient volcanic activities that took place, which basically led to formation of these mountain range. Now if you come a little bit towards the eastern side, you have this particular mountains. This is known as the Tibesti mountain. It basically covers the regions of Chad and Libya. It is also volcanic in nature. Now you come further south, you have this particular mountains, Mituba. Now Mituba basically lies in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Please remember that DRC means Democratic Republic of Congo. It is a block mountain. Now when we come over here further south, it is Muchinga mountain. It is present completely in Zambia. You come further south, you have Matoba hills. These are present in Zimbabwe. Now if you come further south, you will see Drakensberg mountain. You know that very well that it is basically in South Africa, but also there is an independent region that is known as Lesotho. It is present in that region also. That is why I mentioned South Africa and Lesotho. So these are the important mountain ranges that you should be aware of, because UPSC, if wants to ask, generally ask from these only, because over here I have not only covered from the perspective of NCERT, but also use the atlas very exhaustively. So whatever mountain ranges are important has been covered here. See, if you want, I can go into R&D and cover even a small mountain range. That is not cost benefit, will not benefit you also, because it is not cost effective, because you will be doing hundreds of mountain ranges in one particular continent. Then it is difficult to remember also. So these are the important ones which you should be aware of. If questions are being asked, mostly they will be asked from these only. They will not go beyond that, because then it is impossible for any candidate to basically appear, right? So, or solve the question. So these are the important mountain ranges that you should be aware of, right? Atlas, Aghar, Tibesti Massif, Matuba, Muchunga, Matuba, Drakensberg, right? So please note these well. You can pause the video and note them well. Please make sure you do it. Next comes the important peaks. Now please see. We have done the mountain ranges, that is important, but along with it, doing the peaks is also very important, because these can be asked. They very well ask you, very commonly ask you, they'll mention a mountain peak and they will mention, let us say, in which mountain range it is present, or where it is present, which continent it is present. Very often they ask the continents only. So you should be well aware where all these mountains are present. Now see, if you see the Atlas mountain, mountain range, you have Mount Tobakal present here as the highest peak of the Atlas mountain. We had done in the physical division also. This I've again mentioned. Now, if you come here, this is Tibesti mountain over here, Tibesti mountain range that is present here. In this particular mountain range, you have an important peak, Emi Kausi. Emi Kausi, it is present in where? Chad. It is the highest in Sahara desert and it is an extinct volcano. Now, please remember, this question has been asked in UPSC also many years ago. So, remember this, that Emi Kausi is present in Chad. It is the highest in Sahara desert, not in complete Africa, in Sahara desert, and it is an extinct volcano present over here. Tibet Massive itself is basically, it's also a plateau, also mountain range also present. These also an outcome of the volcanic activities that took place a long time ago, right? Now, if you come here, here is Mount Kenya. Now Mount Kenya is basically the second highest in Africa and it is an extinct volcano. So, this is here. Now, if you further come south, you have Mount Kilimanjaro. It is present in Tanzania. It is the highest peak in Africa. It is a dormant volcano. It is a dormant volcano. If you come further south, please remember, within the, you have the Drakensberg Mount. Just a little bit north of it over here lies the Thabana Nithilemma. This is in Lesotho, tallest in South Africa, or Southern Africa for that matter. Southern Africa, South Africa, obviously it's covered, Southern African region, this is the tallest. So these are the ones which are marked in green, are the important peaks that you should be aware of. Pause the video, note it down. You can very well note it down in the previous map that you had drawn with respect to the mountain ranges. You can just pinpoint over there only. It will be more than sufficient for you. Pause the video and note it down. Okay, let's move ahead. Important plateaus. Now see, I have covered all the important plateaus that possibly that you should be aware of from the civil services perspective and various other examinations also. So let's begin. Over here you had seen Agar or Hogar mountain range also. It is basically located on the plateau, that is Agar Plateau. It is basically present in southern Algeria, or you can mention Algeria itself. If you come towards the eastern part of the Agar Plateau, it is basically the Tibesti Plateau. It is in northern Chad or Chad region, right? Over here only we had just studied the important peak, that is Emi Kausi present, that is basically an extinct volcano. Now if you come here, if you come further south of the Agar Plateau, you have the Jos Plateau. It is present in Nigeria and it is very famous for the tin mining. Tin mining is done over here. If you come further south, you have Adamawa Plateau, which is in basically Nigeria and Cameroon. See, over here, south of the Tibesti Massif is the Enedi Plateau. It is again present in Chad. Please remember, it is again present in Chad. On the right side, you had done the eastern highlands. Within the eastern highlands, I had told you that very important plateau is the Ethiopian plateau. So this is the Ethiopian plateau. It is the highest in Africa. It is present in Ethiopia and Eritrea, right? Now, if you come further south, you have the East African Plateau, this region. It is present, basically its extent is present in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. Tea and coffee are grown here because of the suitable climate that is present. If you come further south, you have the Ghap Plateau. Ghap Plateau is present in South Africa and diamond mining is done over here and a lot of diamond deposits or mines are present here. So that is why very famous for diamond mining. That is the Ghap Plateau, South Africa. If you come towards this region, you have the Bai Plateau. Bai Plateau. It is again South African region. Southern Africa, sorry, not South Africa, Southern Africa. It is basically called the Water Tower of Angola. It is present in the Angolan region. It is known as the Water Tower of Angola. This has been asked in the examinations, various examinations, particularly PCS also. Why it is known as the Water Tower of Angola? Because multiple rivers basically originate from this particular plateau. You can be asked this question that, let us say, they can ask you like East African Plateau is known as the Water Tower. Possibly, if you haven't read it, you will not be able to answer it. The reason why Bai Plateau is known as a Water Tower, because Water Tower of Angola, because it is first of all present in Angola, and also along with it because multiple rivers originate from this region, and that is why this title has been given. So this is very, very important here. Let me mark it also because possibly many people will neglect it otherwise. Now comes the Katanga Plateau. Remember, in one of the PCS papers few years back, very well we know that Katanga Plateau is present again in the Democratic Republic of Congo region, but it is one of the richest region with respect to copper and cobalt mining where it is done. So very rich in copper and cobalt. So instead, everybody generally, if you're studying for civil services, you tend to read about Katanga Plateau. But its alternative name is also there, which was asked in the prelims paper of certain PCS examinations where students were not able to answer. Why? Because instead of Katanga, they used the Shaba Plateau. Katanga Plateau has an alternative name which is known as the Shaba Plateau. So that is why, please remember, Katanga and Shaba are same. That is why I've written here. And it is richest in copper and cobalt in the complete world in a way, present in Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. So these are the important aspects and important dimensions which you should know about every plateau. You do not have to go beyond this because if you go, then again, it is not feasible also for you to remember. What I've written here, more than sufficient. Please note it down. Okay. Important rivers. Now see here. See here. You have the river Nile, which is present here, the longest river in the world, which is 6,650 kilometers. It has two tributaries also, the Blue Nile and the White Nile over here. So this is the Nile River. Now, if you come towards the western side, you have a small river, that is River Senegal over here. Then over here you have the very important river, River Niger. Now, River Niger is again the West African lifeline because very important for the survival and the provision of water for the people who are present here. Niger has a tributary which is small tributary, River Benue. Towards the western side of River Benue is River Volta. River Volta that is present. Clear? Now, when you move further south, this is the River Congo, which we have studied already in the Congo basin, goes through, Congo basin is present in this particular region. Now, this is the deepest river in the world. We have the longest river Nile, deepest river about in regions where 220-meter depth is also there. Now, that is huge from the perspective of a river. So, deepest river in the world and second longest river is also there. And it crosses the equator twice. If you see here, it is crossing here also and here also. So there are 2 points where River Congo crosses the equator. These are those points which you should be always remembering because it can be asked. In the examination, if it is asked, possibly you will not be able to recollect because when they write which among the, let us say they will mention XYZ river and they say it is crossing the equator twice. You will not be able to recollect if you haven't read it. That is why River Congo, it is crossing the equator from at 2 points. See here, rising here, going here, cutting the equator here, then again cutting the equator here. You come further south, you have the river Zambezi. It is the largest eastward flowing river of Africa. Victoria Fall, one of the largest waterfalls, is present on the Zambezi river. Further south, you have river Limpopo and then you have the river Orange. Now, these are again important rivers which are present in the southern African region. Please note them down. I'm giving you time, right? Pause the video and note it down. Let's move ahead. Important lakes. Now, these are important lakes that are present. Let's see. If you see, this is Lake Chad. This is inland and a shallow lake. If you come further south, Lake Volta. Now, Lake Volta is basically an artificial lake. You should be well aware because this question has also been asked. Because generally we tend to assume that every lake that is mentioned here is natural. No, Lake Volta is an artificial lake. If you see here, if you go, let us say, towards the northern region, you have Lake Nasir over here. Further south, you have Lake Turkana. You come south, you have Lake Victoria. This is the largest in Africa. So the largest lake in Africa is Lake Victoria. You go further south, you have Lake Tanganyika. This is the second deepest lake in the world. You come further south, you have the Lake Lias, famous for the cichlid fish. Cichlid fish. These are small fishes which are present, and you will recall that this question has also been asked in the civil services examination, right? Few years back. So it is not that I have prepared this based on the question paper. No, I made the diagrams and all the maps. Then I checked the questions, can certain things be added? Then I realized that whatever we have done, most of the questions could be done from these things also with respect to the African continent, or for that matter, geography topics which we are doing in the other series, or the mapping series of other continents also can be managed or done. Please remember, over here, we can very well mark every country, every capital and all. Please remember, those are not cost benefit. They will not benefit you from the civil services perspective. These are the important things which you should do, because if you start learning the capitals of every country, 54 countries, and you achieve that goal, possibly you can gain money from KBC if you get selected. But in civil services, that will be waste of energy and your resources, particularly your energy. So please align with yourself what is the requirement of civil services. Simply knowing those things which are generally not asked only, and that takes, let us say, humongous amount of time and energy, and you know that if 10 years one question will ask and you're focusing most of the time on those things, learning the capitals and all, then possibly it will be not useful for you. So please remember this very, very well. Let's move ahead. Important deserts. Now there are very important deserts present here. This is the Sahara desert. This is the largest hot desert we had already done. Within this region, you have the Libyan desert over here. It is very rich in oil, right? Oil deposits are found here. Further east over here is the White Desert. Then you have the Nubian Desert. This is basically stony desert along the Nile. So you should be aware of this fact. You have the Namib and the Kalahari. You very well know about them because you have done in the physical division. So these are the important deserts. Please pause the video and write it down or make these things, because see, in the examination they will ask you basic fact only, that this desert is present in Africa or South America and all. So having this knowledge will be very useful for you to answer a lot of extra questions which you otherwise would have not been able to attempt. Then comes the water bodies. See, you have the Mediterranean Sea over here. Then this is the Strait of Gibraltar, which is basically connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. You have the Gulf of Guinea here. This complete region is the Atlantic Ocean. You come here, this is the Mozambique Channel. This is the Indian Ocean here. This is the Gulf of Aden here. This is the Red Sea. These are the important water bodies that you should be aware of. Pause the video and write it down. Okay. Natural vegetation, a brief idea you should know because it overlaps with the climate also. This is the Mediterranean vegetation that is found here. As we know, citrus fruits, olives, grapes are grown here. Then along with it, you have this desert vegetation is present here. Desert vegetation because of the Sahara, and along with it, the Namib and Kalahari desert also. If you see, this white portion is basically the Savanna, which we had done. Savanna has 3 divisions, which are already done. Then this is the mountainous vegetation. Wherever the high, let us say the altitude is more, you will have a mountainous vegetation. It is possible because either the altitude is high of the mountain range or the plateau. So this is all that is marked in pink over here refers to the mountainous vegetation. Now these are the velds that are present. You remember I had mentioned the temperate grasslands. So this is the temperate grassland, the veld that are present here. And the green region in the Congo basin basically refers to the tropical rainforest region. So this is the vegetation. Clear? Now is the important MCQ session. See here, write your answers in the comment section. I will request you that I will post the answers of all the questions 24 hours after the video has been made public. So I will request you to please see this, write the answers, watch this video and write them in the comment section. Let's see. First question. I'm not telling you the answers. I will put the answers in the comment section after 24 hours. First, Nile River is called the Great Gift of Nile. Assertion 1. Reason, Nile is the longest river in Africa and supports agriculture in arid regions of Egypt. Again, A, B, C, D. Both A and both the statements are correct, but R is a correct explanation. Over here, both are true, but R is not a correct explanation. A is true, reason is false. A, that means assertion is false, but the reason is true. So you have to mark whichever is the answer. You can pause the video, pause this video, attempt the question and write the answer in the comment section. Second, Lake Tanganyika is deeper than Lake Victoria. This is the assertion. Reason, Lake Tanganyika is in a rift valley lake formed by tectonic subsidence, while Lake Victoria is a shallow depression. Again, similar thing, both are true, but R explains, the reason explains A. Both are true, but R reason does not explain the assertion. A is true, R is false. Both A and R are false. So please take a minute, pause the video and write your answer in the comment section. Assertion, Namib Desert is the oldest desert in the world. Reason, Namib Desert is a coastal desert supported by fog from Benguela Current. Over here again, 4 points. A and R are true. R explains A. A and R are true. R does not explain A. A is true. R is false. Both A and R are false. Answer this. Last question. This is match the following. I'm not mentioning it, just you can have a look. Column Kalahari, Sahara, Danakil and Nubian. Over here, this is a column. Now, please understand, it is quite possible that you might have not, let us say, known a name of one or the other, but you know 3 of them also which we've been taught. So, you should be able to answer them. You will come across such things. Please remember, if you do not know one or the other thing, that does not create a problem, because if you know the others, you will be able to derive the answer. Important is getting the answer, not knowing every single thing over here. Please, this is the art of MCQ or answering. Please write it down. Pausing the video, correct it, right? Okay. This is a reference map, and as we have said, thank you over here. It is a request to you to please, for God's sake, attempt all these questions properly, make the maps, make the diagrams, whatever has been drawn here, write all the content in your A4 sheet, and along with it, please, please, please revise them. If you do them, you will be able to score really good marks. This is more than sufficient for your preparation. Obviously, things will be added when you are doing the physical geography series along with me. Please remember, when you are reading this, there are sort of things like, let us say, Rift Valley and all, those concepts have been explained in the physical geography series that is going on along with it. Please, if you want to complete your geography well, want to revise it, or who want to start the physical geography also, along with the mapping, this series is going on this channel, PW Only IAS English. Make the best use of it. There are a lot of things that are present new, a lot of various concepts have been explained. Many people, those who have done the lecture also from various teachers, from various institutes or other places also, use it as a means to revision, to revise. Why? Because a lot of things that you might not be aware of, and those things, if asked in the paper, probably you will regret. So, make the best use of the content that is being offered. As per the vision of Alak sir, we had already making you available all this content and lectures free of cost on this English channel. So, make the best use of it. Take care. God bless. And at the end, as we always say, Jai Hind.